The diner's neon sign flickered against the midnight sky, casting a soft glow over the cracked pavement of Route 17. It was 2 a.m., and the world felt hushed, save for the occasional rumble of a semi-truck passing by. Inside Rosie's all-night diner, the air smelled of coffee and grease, and the hum of a jukebox played a faint country tune. This was the kind of place where time seemed to pause, where the weary found solace in a warm meal and a kind word. And tonight, a man named David Harper sat in a corner booth, his baseball cap pulled low, his heart heavier than he'd ever admit. David wasn't just any customer. He was the CEO of Harper Foods, a multi-billion-dollar empire that owned thousands of restaurants across the country, including this little diner. But nobody here knew that. To the staff, he was just Dave, a quiet guy who'd ordered a burger and a black coffee, blending into the night shift's rhythm. David had made a fortune building his company, but lately, he felt disconnected from the people who kept it running, the cooks, the servers, the dishwashers who worked while the world slept. So, he'd started visiting his restaurants incognito, hoping to see the truth of his business through the eyes of those who lived it. Tonight, though, wasn't just about business. David was grappling with something deeper. His teenage daughter, Lily, had been battling leukemia for 2 years, and the latest round of treatments wasn't working. The hospital bills were crushing, even for a man of his wealth, and the emotional toll was worse. He'd spent the day at her bedside, watching her sleep, feeling helpless. Now, unable to sleep himself, he'd driven to Rosie's, seeking something. Clarity, maybe. Or just a moment to breathe. The diner was nearly empty. A trucker nursed a milkshake at the counter, and an elderly woman sat by the window, scribbling in a notebook. Behind the counter, a young server named Mia moved with quiet efficiency. She was in her early 20s, with tired eyes and a smile that seemed to defy her exhaustion. David watched her refill the trucker's coffee, laughing at his bad joke about the weather. There was a warmth to her, a kindness that felt genuine, not forced. He made a mental note to check her employee file later. People like her were the heart of his company. Then the bell above the door jingled, and a man shuffled in. He was disheveled, his coat too thin for the chilly night, his hands trembling as he clutched a crumpled dollar bill. David's first thought was that he looked homeless, but there was a quiet dignity in his posture, like he was fighting to hold onto something the world had tried to take. Mia greeted him with the same warmth she'd shown everyone else. "Hey, Carlos," she said softly. "Usual tonight?" The man, Carlos, nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "If it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all." Mia waved him to a stool. She disappeared into the kitchen, returning with a steaming plate of pancakes and bacon, far more than $1 could buy. Carlos's eyes widened, and he started to protest, but Mia just shook her head. "On the house, okay? You look like you could use it." David leaned forward, intrigued. He'd seen enough of his restaurants to know that giving away food wasn't standard practice. Most managers would have sent Carlos away or, at best, given him a cup of coffee for his $1. But Mia wasn't just bending the rules, she was rewriting them with compassion. He glanced at the security camera above the counter, wondering what else it had captured in this quiet diner. As Carlos ate, Mia chatted with him, asking about his day, listening as he spoke haltingly about looking for work. David caught snippets of their conversation. Carlos had been a mechanic once, but a string of bad luck had left him on the streets. Mia didn't pry or judge. She just listened, her presence a kind of anchor. When Carlos finished, she slipped him a to-go bag with a sandwich and an apple, whispering, "For tomorrow." David's coffee had gone cold, but he barely noticed. He was watching something unfold that he hadn't expected, a small act of humanity that felt bigger than the diner itself. Then, another surprise. The elderly woman by the window approached the counter, sliding a $20 bill toward Mia. "For his meal," the woman said, her voice firm. "And keep the change." Mia blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Ma'am, you don't have to." "I want to," the woman insisted. "You're doing good here, girl. Don't stop." The trucker, overhearing, pulled out his wallet and added a 10. "Put me in on it," he grunted. "Kid's got heart." David felt a lump in his throat. This wasn't just about Mia anymore. It was about a ripple effect, a chain of kindness that seemed to spark from one person's selflessness. He scribbled a note on his napkin, his CEO instincts kicking in. Check night shift protocols. Why isn't this standard? But then, the night took another turn. The kitchen door swung open, and a cook, Jose, according to his name tag, emerged, wiping his hands on an apron. He glanced at Carlos, who was gathering his things, and said, "Hold up, man." Jose reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to Carlos. "My cousin's got a garage downtown. They need a mechanic. Call him tomorrow." "Yeah." Carlos stared at the paper, his hands shaking again, but this time with something like hope. "Why? Why would you do this?" Jose shrugged, a shy grin breaking through. "You said you're good with cars. World needs more of that." Mia, watching, wiped her eyes quickly, pretending it was just dust from the counter. The elderly woman smiled, and the trucker nodded, as if they were all part of some unspoken agreement. David, though, was floored. He'd come here to observe his business, but what he was witnessing was a community, a group of strangers bound by quiet, selfless acts. He thought of Lily, of how he'd give anything to see her smile again, and suddenly, these small gestures felt monumental. He pulled out his phone and opened the diner's security footage, accessible through his CEO portal. He rewound to earlier in the night, curious to see how long this had been going on. What he saw left him speechless. For weeks, Mia had been giving free meals to those who couldn't pay, covering the cost from her own tips. Jose had been slipping job leads to anyone who mentioned looking for work. Even the dishwasher, a teenager named Aisha, had been packing extra food for a single mom who came in late. The night shift wasn't just serving food, they were serving hope. David's chest tightened. He thought of his board meetings, his profit margins, his endless focus on efficiency. How had he missed this? His company's heart wasn't in its spreadsheets, it was here, in a diner at 2 a.m., in people who gave more than they had. And then, a realization hit him like a freight train. Lily. Her hospital bills. The families he'd met in the oncology ward, struggling to afford treatment. He'd been so focused on his own pain that he hadn't seen the bigger picture. He stood, leaving a $100 bill under his plate, and approached Mia. "You're doing something special here," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Don't ever stop." Mia smiled, a little confused. "Just doing my job." "No," David said firmly. "You're doing more than that. You're changing lives." He left before she could respond, his mind racing. By dawn, he was back in his office, drafting a plan. He called an emergency board meeting, announcing a new initiative, the Harper Hope Fund, a program to cover medical bills for families battling serious illnesses, starting with those in the communities his restaurants served. He redirected millions from his personal fortune and restructured the company's charity budget. And he promoted Mia, Jose, and Aisha, not just with raises but with roles to lead community outreach, ensuring their compassion shaped the company's future. A month later, David sat by Lily's bedside, her hand in his. She was weaker now, but her eyes lit up when he told her about Rosie's, about the night shift that had changed him. "Dad," she whispered, "that's what people are supposed to do. Help each other." He nodded, tears falling. "Yeah, kiddo. And we're going to keep doing it." The security footage from Rosie's became training material for every Harper Foods employee, a reminder that kindness wasn't just a gesture, it was a legacy. Across the country, diners and restaurants adopted the night shift's ethos, becoming havens for the weary, the hungry, the hopeful. And David, once a man chasing profits, found purpose in something far greater, the power of humanity to heal, one small act at a time.